All 3 books for 5.5 are now out, and I have read them all cover to cover. Okay, not the indexes. I still don't like many of the decisions that Hasbro makes, and I don't particularly like the emphasis on an action space-esque design. It reminds me of a worker placement game. And I like worker placement games. There's one of them somewhere back there. I can't really see where I'm pointing, so hopefully I'm getting somewhere near Village. It's still an edition, Dungeons & Dragons that is, that many people are going to play, including myself and my table. Though for my table and the way we play, I am going to have to hack the crap out of it. I'm James, and on DM with the Day Job, I talk about the things that I plan and plot for my tabletop role-playing games. If you like that kind of content, then there's buttons down there for like and subscribe. I also recently put up an adventure on DM's Guild edited by my friend Zozo. If you like the kind of stuff that I talk about on this channel, you might like that adventure. No matter which game I'm playing, whether that's Pathfinder, Dungeons & Dragons, Shadowdark, I always customize the game to try to increase the engagement both from the players and from myself. And since we've got a new edition of Dungeons & Dragons, kind of, let's use Dungeons & Dragons to talk about how I prep to run a new role-playing game. You could try not reading the rules, but I think you're going to be in for a very bad game. Still, both these books, it's going to be almost 600 pages, not including the spells, the magic item, the appendices, the glossaries. That's still a lot. Not all of it is applicable all the time. So what do you need to read? I'd start with pages 7 to 32 of the Player's Handbook and pages 43 to 48 of the Dungeon Master's Guide. Oh my God, he's giving them homework. They're pretty pictures. Those pages cover combat, the most gamist and structured of activities that are going to get up to in a D20 fantasy game like Dungeons & Dragons. And it's important to get that right as often as you can so that you don't have to tell players, I'm really sorry that I got that rule wrong and that your character died as a result of it, and I'm sorry that you spent the last 30 minutes making a new character. We can just retcon it and say that your character has been alive this entire time, that you've just been staring there, bored, unable to engage in the game. Read the combat rules. Do you have to read the character creation and class guides? Maybe not yet. If it's your first time and your player's first time, then I would start with pre-generated characters and read the instructions for those particular classes so that you can help the players out understanding how their character functions in the game world. I know that character creation in Session 0 are sacrosanct to most of the community, but hear me out on this. In my personal experience, were I to invite someone over to play a board game or a tabletop role-playing game, and that for the first 30 minutes to an hour, we're going to discuss the social contract, the do's and don'ts, what's safe to say at the table and what's not safe. Are you okay with spiders? Are you not okay with scenes of tortures? What about evil? Then we're going to make characters, and by hour 1 or so, we should get to actually play the game. I will get a lot of, thanks for the offer, but no thanks. That doesn't sound like it's for me. Players that are new to role-playing games are in a whole new social dynamic. They don't know how to behave. So in my experience, they really look to the Dungeon Master to be an example of what they're supposed to do, what's okay to do in a role-playing game. So be a good example. And then if this group decides to continue to play, then yes, set aside some time and make new characters or make these current characters their own and talk about all the ins and outs and do's and don'ts and social contracts. And we're going to do this type of behavior, but not this kind of behavior. Romance is okay, but torture's not okay. All those kind of things, because eventually they will become comfortable with one another. And when people become comfortable, their inhibitions start to drop. And that's when somebody says or does something that you are going to have to deal with. Whoa, holy, not cool, man. But these folks are new and you're trying to get them interested in continuing to play a role-playing game. Maybe starting off with 30 minutes to an hour of paperwork is not the most exciting option. The head killer! You should still read all the character creation stuff eventually. If you have new players, you're going to need to help them create their new characters and figuring out how their characters function in the game world. And if you have experienced players, sometimes intentionally, but most of the time unintentionally, they will read the rules and they will interpret X to mean Y when it really means Z. And it can be useful for the Dungeon Master to understand what the rules actually say rather than what a player interpreted them to mean. Still, unless you have an eidetic memory, reading almost 600 pages of this stuff, you're not going to remember what everything means. And you should make a ruling where possible and just move on. But sometimes, because you want to be fair with the players, because it's come up often, you want to be consistent, or because a character's life is in the line, you're going to have to crack open one of these books and figure out what it says about something, grappling, or saves, or death mechanics, or something like that. And at that point, you have slowed the game down, and we are now bleeding excitement. Bookmarks in the DM screen are your friend. Yes, the new rules glossary is great, but just like the index, you need to know the right letter to go to get to the thing that you're looking for, and you might still need to go to the actual section of the book to find all the details. If you're in D&D Beyond or Google, you have to know the right thing to type in to get to the thing that you're looking for, and that takes time. Any time we waste is losing some excitement. If you're using the books like I am, then these little post-it things are great. They're plastic on one end, you can write on it, and then you just tack them into your book. These are the ones that I used in 4th edition, then 5th edition, and now 5.5. And they are not so tacky that I can't just pull them up if I need to. They don't stick so much that I rip the page. They don't pull up ink and they just tack right back down. They are fantastic. If I need to change an actual rules errata or something in the book, I take actual post-its, and then I cut off the sticky part, I write on the sticky part, and then I put it into the book. Like this little section here on actions where it says that using a magic item, like a potion, is an action, but using a healing potion, a commonly used magic item, is not. It's a bonus action. It says that on page 228, but why would a player go all the way to page 228 when they seem to have found the answer right here on page 14? It should say that. So I put it in the book. You could write directly into the book, I guess.
You will be flogged. And when we put into Cuba to resupply, God willing, you will be flogged some more.
What I want on my DM screen are things that I'm pretty sure that I'm going to use practically every session, like cover vision and light. Those are such tactically advantageous ways to manipulate a battlefield that I am pretty much going to use them every time. And since there are different versions of cover and they provide different bonuses, I'm probably not going to remember the right bonus for the right level of cover, so I want on my DM screen. I also want object hit points on my DM screen because players break a lot of things because they've played too many Zelda games. I also want the feats and weapon masteries on my DM screen. Because I haven't committed those to memory, my players get to use them, then so too do my monsters. If you encounter a Death Knight aspirant in my world and she has a Morningstar, then she may be able to sap you. If you can kill a bunch of ogres and get to the hill giant chieftain that is leading them, they may have the Crusher feat. I run a sandbox-style campaign where the players can go wherever they want, and I will improvise the dungeons if I have to. That means I don't always have time to make legendary actions for these monsters, and this is one way for me to be able to customize them and make it feel like you got to the boss in the encounter. In the book, I want things that I'm going to use to improvise and inspire for my prep sessions, and also things that I'm sure my players are going to ask for every couple sessions. Like the prices for weapons, armor, spellcasting scrolls, potions because of, well, shopping sessions. The hazards and traps in here are also really good to mark because they can be used during prep. They can also be used during a game session to spice up an encounter that just needs a little more. Let's imagine that you have a group of adventurers and they go off into the swamp for whatever reason that is, and you have them encounter a bunch of giant spiders. And that encounter is going too smoothly and you just need to spice it up. We're secretly hoping this will take a little bit more time because we don't have any dungeons prepped out here because that's not where any of their quest hooks were. Webs are a hazard that makes sense for spiders. They're on page 79, but what if I just flip the page back? Oh, look, quicksand. We're in a swamp. What if we do something like crawl? One person is entangled with the spiders and one is sinking into the quicksand. Which one of the players is going to help first? That will spice up what is otherwise a bog standard spiders in the swamp encounter. I put down the doobly-doo everything that I have marked in my Dungeon Master's Guide, Player's Handbook, and Monster's Manual. Some of those things are things that I use for prep, some of those things are things that I use to inspire the sessions in the moment, and some of them are idiosyncratic to the type of game that I run. Hopefully they're helpful. Now let's talk about those rules.
The code is more what you'd call guidelines than actual rules. Welcome aboard the Black Pearl, Miss Turner.
As a Dungeon Master, you're within your rights to change any of the rules in these books. And if you're going to do so, it should be with the intent of making the game more engaging for your table. If you're the type of Dungeon Master that likes tracking every arrow, every ration, every spell component, but your players absolutely hate it and is driving the enjoyment from them, then you're going to have to set that aside. Hopefully there are things about the game that you can find joy in other than that. You are a player too. You should get to have some fun, but not at the expense of everybody else's fun. They are not here to entertain you. You are here to entertain each other. There are lots of popular things to change, like rests. Maybe short rests are the things that happen overnight, whereas a long rest requires a week in town. That would make it more easy to use downtime rules, or like the Bastion rule system or something along those lines. Maybe you want to change how death saves work. They don't exist at all. You die at 0 hit points. Or you get your con modifier in death saves, or you're going to use negative hit points or something from a previous edition. Maybe identifying magic items can't be done by just attuning to it. You actually have to use the identify spell. I want to share 4 things that I'm considering changing for my game, hopefully to give you ideas of things that you might want to tinker with to customize your own experience. I want to change how long characters can hold their breath. Suffocation, drowning, these are primal human fears. We're not good in the water, and that will make people feel like they are under threat. And that is the point of going out on an adventure. It is not a safe location. You should not feel like your characters are safe. That's what makes them feel like heroes, is they go into these places doing things that normal people would not be doing. I don't like the idea of, take that crawl example with the sand pit from earlier, that the person could just sink to the bottom and stay down there for 2 minutes while the other characters go and deal with the spiders. We'll come back to you once the spiders are dealt with. So in my games, I am changing it to where they can only hold their breath for 5 rounds, that is 30 seconds, plus whatever their constitution modifier is and their athletics modifier. That way, as characters go up in levels and increase their athletics proficiency, they can hold their breath for longer, because that represents what actually happens. A normal human being can hold their breath for 30 seconds to 90 seconds, and you can train it to hold it longer than that, up to like 3 to 4 minutes for some Navy SEALs. But those SEALs are holding it in like a I'm standing still kind of way. And most of our adventurers are holding their breath, fighting Sahuagin or I don't know, whatever is under the water. They are not standing still. So this ends up with something like anywhere from 3 to 18 rounds, depending on whether you have a negative constitution modifier or proficiency in athletics. And that allows me to put more pressure when they go into a sandpit or they go underwater, and the players won't feel like they're safe. And spells like water breathing become far more valuable. Curses, diseases, and poisons in my game are now an ability check to remove. Just like dispel magic for magic, but remove curse for curses. Take somebody with lycanthropy, for example. There is a DC to catching lycanthropy, so I just use that. Somebody wanting to remove it, casts remove curse, and then they roll their ability check, add their appropriate modifier, and if they exceed the DC of catching lycanthropy, they have removed it from somebody. I've also buffed those DCs, because I don't like that once somebody reaches level 5 and gets remove curse, remove poisons, dispel magic, all those kind of things, these things become non-issues. They can just get rid of them like that. Curses that afflict lycanthropy, mummy rot, ancient god curses to make somebody a Medusa, and assassin's poisons and strange mythical diseases are so core to fantasy. They're kind of a big deal.
I don't know how to put this, but I'm kind of a big deal.
I'm changing how clerics and warlocks interact with their gods and their patrons in my game. So now if they have done something to upset their patron or their god, they can rescind the magical power. That's not new. That's how Dungeons & Dragons used to work. But in the current edition on page 75, it now reads, for game purposes, wielding divine power isn't dependent on the god's ongoing approval or the strength of the character's devotion. The power is a gift offered to a select few. Once given, it cannot be rescinded. Your game, your rules. And in my game, a god can remove it. My gods aren't omniscient, just mostly omniscient.
There's a big difference between mostly dead and all dead.
It is possible for a cleric to do something against their god's will and the god not to know about it. But if the cleric dies, goes to their god, and then gets resurrected explicitly against that god's will, when that god sends an angel to get the cleric to explain themselves, the cleric and their party kill the angel and then run away, then yes, that deity is going to remove the clerical powers because you are no longer in alignment. You're not doing with this power whatever it is that the god gave you the powers to go and do. If you need more powers to continue your adventure,
then there are definitely beings that are willing to bargain with you.
I created a separate condition for compulsions from charms. Anything that was like a charm person, charm monster, or friend stayed under charm. And under compulsion, I put things like geish, dominate person, dominate monster, because to me, they're different. A compulsion is something that the character is aware that they have. They just can't do anything about it, at least not directly. Whereas a charm is something that the character doesn't even know that they should be reacting to until after it has already been removed. The condition works very similar to the charm spell. You must, to the best of your abilities, perform the instructions of the individual that is compelling you. And you cannot, through direct action, harm the person that is compelling you. If the players manage to find some way to circumvent this or cause harm indirectly or weasel out of it, then good job. Well done, players. That's what I want to have happen. But I trust my players enough not to kind of try to metagame or weasel out of it without actual motivation. I know they're compelled because they wandered in that tavern. When they came out, they weren't talking the same. Man, at least ask to roll an insight check. If they were doing stuff like that, I could always change the rules or I could address the behavior. Whatever you're going to change, it should be to make the game more engaging for your players, for your table. Maybe they want really crunchy combat where you can electrify pools of water or freeze them or ignite poison gas clouds, things like Baldur's Gate 3. Or maybe they want more role-playing opportunities like the popular I Know a Guy rule. Or maybe they want both. It is, after all, a role-playing game. It'd be nice if you had both the role-playing and the game together. Or maybe they just want vanilla. That's okay. You played the vanilla rules, you're going to get a vanilla experience. And vanilla happens to be my favorite flavor. I like vanilla. I don't know what to tell people. I like glazed donuts. Those are my favorite. I like vanilla ice cream. What do you want from me? I like vanilla. But sometimes you and your table want something different. It is okay to change the rules, to make it yours. It is your table, after all. Until next time, Dungeon Masters, remember, you're a player too. Try to have some fun. Hopefully I won't be sick next time.